Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio, so today we need to look at some Pokemon who would rather you didn't play supporter cards, if I'm honest with you. And if you don't play supporter cards, yay! If you do play supporter cards, well, let's just say they're not going to like you anywhere near as much. So let's start off with our old friend Claydo. I say our old friend Claydo because, of course, let's not forget that back in Great Encounters, we had that Claydo, which still to this day ranks among the very, very, very best cards ever released in the Pokemon trading card game. And no, I don't think that's even a hint of an exaggeration. Shout out to Pokemon for acknowledging this when they did the 25th anniversary set, when they did celebrations. They did actually acknowledge this, and they went, you know what? We're going to make one of those classic collection cards Claydo, and they should have done, because Claydo was absolutely ridiculous. So this new Claydo then, is it as good? Obviously not. Is it good? Might be. 110 HP, uninspiring. 70 damage for free energy, absolutely terrible. But the ability says, once during your turn, if you have no supporter cards in your discard pile, you may attach a fighting energy from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon. Oh, well, that's not too bad, ladies and gentlemen. That's not too bad at all. You see, this is energy acceleration for fighting decks in the way that we've kind of always wanted it. Now, what's weird is that this is basically, well, it's a thing we've seen a billion times before, right? This is Malamar, or this is Electric, or this is Bronzong. Or if you're a newer player, this is Flaffy. We've seen this card a bazillion times. What's weird is that now all of a sudden, you've got to have no supports in your discard pile to use it, but you can attach it to the active, which is actually a really big deal. If you played with any of those cards that I mentioned, you will notice that every single one of them can only attach to the bench. It can't attach to the active, and that's always been a big deal. It's always been a big deal that it's only been to the bench because you need to keep getting in and out of the active. If you discard energy, it's a bit of a problem. We've been waiting for energy acceleration for fighting decks. And make no mistake about it, this is good energy acceleration for fighting decks. This is, we've had Gutsy Pickaxe. That's like the best we've got. Now we've got legitimate energy acceleration for fighting decks. And the thing is, we need to take a minute to talk about this no supporters in the discard pile. It doesn't necessarily mean playing a deck with no supporters. It could mean playing aggressively with a card like Palpad. I.e., you're playing 4 copies of Palpad, and the goal here is that use Claydo, then use your supporter, and hope to keep drawing into Palpad to put them back into your deck. Then they're not in the discard pile, and Claydo comes back onto the board. That is an option. Or it could just be acknowledging that you're going to get 1 or 2 uses of Claydo, and that's going to be it. But you're hoping to get 1 or 2 uses in the early game, and then that's going to be enough to take you through the game. Again, maybe still playing a couple of Palpad, because you never know, you might still get a chance to use some of them in the future. There are ways around this, they're all just super duper duper awkward. And that's the big problem we end up facing. The thing is, we've got ways here. We've got Battle VIP Pass, which will get your active Pokemon out nice and quickly. That's a good thing. We've got Bibarel, which will draw until you got 5 cards in your hand and give you a fairly nice draw engine. We've got the Mew that came around in Celebrations, which will look at the top 6 cards of your deck and find you a trainer card, which can actually be a nice little engine. Let's not forget we've got decks at the moment that are using Comfy, and generally speaking, those decks are playing supporter cards, but they're only playing a few of them and it's not that important, and they're, often playing stuff like Chorus's Experiment, which we all know is really there. Don't get me wrong, it's fine for draw, but Chorus's Experiment is there to try and boost up your Lost Zone to use all those Pokemon that want cards in the Lost Zone. It's not the only way to use it. Obviously, it's also draw. But my point is, we do have a bunch of ways at the moment where we can use Pokemon and we can use item cards and things of that nature to actually have a draw engine that doesn't revolve around supporters. Now, that doesn't mean that that's the best way to go. If supporters were rubbish, we wouldn't be playing them. But what I am saying is that maybe between these other ways and using Palpad for the occasional supporter you do have to use, maybe there is a way to make this work. It's awkward, but maybe the energy acceleration is worth it. You just have to decide if there's a fighting deck you like well enough to actually go ahead and use this, and maybe it is. Maybe something like Rapid Strike Urshifu, doing 120 to 2 Pokemon, maybe with that little extra bit of energy acceleration, maybe that becomes good enough. Maybe Single Strike Urshifu, doing huge damage to KO Pokemon V-Star, without being one-hit KO'd back. Maybe this can be the difference between getting that rolling and not getting that rolling. Maybe it's finally time to have a little bit of a play around with that Lucario that does more damage depending on how many fighting energy are attached to it and can search for some itself, and maybe this gives a little bit of a boost to that. My point is, maybe there's a fighting deck out there. Maybe there's something out there that can work with this, that can use that little extra bit of energy acceleration to go and make a big difference. I'd like there to be, because generally I like fighting decks. They're pretty good, and they're hitting a decent weakness nowadays. But I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not sure. Or maybe it's an Aerodactyl V-Star deck, which works with the Lost Zone anyway. So maybe we use that with the Lost Zone engine, using stuff like Comfy, and maybe that's your engine to get rolling. My point is, there are options here, that's all I'm trying to say. So with that as the energy acceleration, we do have a couple of cards to use with it, including a fighting Pokemon, Stonejourner, and I've got a big soft spot for Stonejourner. Single energy, 20 damage, nobody cares. But fighting, 2 colorless energy, 60 damage. If you don't have any supporter cards in your discard pile, it does 130 more damage. And look, this is fine, but there's problems. Now, let's focus on the good for the minute. Single prize Pokemon can use Twin Energy. So, with Twin Energy here, essentially what you're doing is hitting 190 in a single turn, because you use Claydo to accelerate 1 energy, attach Twin, you're off and rolling. 190 is not quite enough. Add a choice bout, you're getting a one-hit KO on Pokemon V. And obviously if you're hitting for weakness, you're good. So okay, that'll work. And you are hitting weakness on Arceus, and you are hitting weakness on Hisuian Zoroark. So it's a kind of relevant weakness at the moment. So that's quite nice. And that could work. Not sure it's amazing, honestly. Might not be good enough. But could work. You never know. Could be good. Could be a fun time. It's just a bit awkward. Like, it kind of has to be Twin Energy, because if you use Double Turbo Energy, then you're only hitting 200 with a Choice Belt, and that means you're not getting a KO on Pokemon V. That's a bit of a problem. So it's a little bit too expensive, and although you can pay it, it's a bit awkward, and you've got to play no supporters, and you need a Choice Belt to KO Pokemon V. And if you can build a big, nice, consistent deck with no supporters like I've been suggesting, then all of a sudden, you know, if you can get your tool, if you can get your Choice Belt, going from nothing to a KO on a Pokemon V in one turn is good. And this is a good card. But the problem is, you've got to have Claydo, you've got to avoid supporters, you've got to have Twin Energy just to make it good enough. That might be too much, ladies and gentlemen. But hey, there's a Stun Fist coming in as well. And we see a very similar thing. First attack, 2 colorless energy, 30 damage, not good enough. Also, I know a lot of people have been going nuts for the Kanda art. I've not been a huge fan up to now. This is, in my opinion, the best they've done. Yes, even better than that one. I do like this one. And we've got Lightning double colorless. You can only use this attack if you don't have any supporters in your discard pile. And it does 100 to one of your opponent's Pokemon. And once again, we run into a bunch of issues. 100 is fine, but it's not going to get everything. I mean, it doesn't even get Bieber out, for goodness sake. I mentioned that earlier. Doesn't even get that. You're 20 damage away. That's a problem. It needs Lightning double colorless, but remember the whole zero supporter deck thing. It's kind of relying on Claydo to accelerate fighting energy, and this doesn't use fighting energy, so you would need 2 Claydo out to get a Lightning and 2 fighting to get rolling. That's way too awkward. And, like, everyone's playing Manaphy at the moment. Like, everyone's playing Manaphy. And one of the reasons everyone's playing Manaphy and is going to keep playing Manaphy is that Radiant Greninja's absolutely busted. And if you don't play Manaphy, Radiant Greninja is going to have a field day against you. So kind of everyone's playing Manaphy right now. And I know that Manaphy can hit the active, but free energy 100 to the active is terrible. So really the reason you're playing Stunfisk is to hit the bench. But the vast majority of decks aren't going to let you hit the bench right now. So, yeah. This is genuinely disappointing. I love weird decks. I love these weird theme decks that Pokemon print and try and push us towards. I think they're fun, I think they're interesting, and I want to play them. And I think, genuinely do, I do think there is a way where you can build a consistent deck with either no supporters or so few supporters that you can just get around it with Palpad. My big problem here, and I'm sorry, it is a big problem, my big problem here is that the Pokemon we've got to take advantage of it isn't actually good enough. So why am I going out of my way to do this? And the honest answer is I don't think I am. Maybe there is just a pure fighting deck with Stonejourner and some other fighting Pokemon that can work here. That'd be cool. Or maybe there are going to be more no supporter cards in the future. I mean, certainly, I don't know how many of you remember this, but I do, because this is the card I really tried to make work. How about the Golurk we got a while ago? That was fun, right? This was Cosmic Eclipse. The difference with Golurk was it was just 2 energy, 160. That was the difference. You could just attach a twin energy and roll. These are too awkward, and you got to have no supporters, but I do think it's easier to play a no supporter deck now than when Golurk came out, so I don't know. Hope for the future. I'm giving this 3 Wassies, although I do think there is potential in Claydo. I would not be surprised to see somebody breaking that wide open in the future. For now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to know what you think about all of this, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at The Wassie. That's where we talk Pokemon card games, all kinds of fun things. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts where I answer all your questions, join a Discord to chat some Pokemon stuff with us, and get shout-outs like the lovely Kanto Royal, who has been a supporter of ours for a little while now, and is a very lovely person. So thank you to Kanto Royal for the support, and for being a very lovely person. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.